So do your kids have a right to privacy? What about the right to keep them safe and to keep your home safe? That's really the debate that's going on right now. One state senator telling parents to spy on their children. Take a look at what he says to do here.
I always recommend to start out in a periodic fashion so you'll be used to going through the room to look at the various items in the room. The jury box of this nature may be a simple jury box, but if you look through it closely, you don't know what your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun could be hidden, a small caliber weapon could be hidden inside a jewelry box. Just look and see what's inside your bookcases. It could be more than just books. Perfect place to hide cocaine.
Seems pretty straightforward. Keep your kids safe. Better keep an eye on them. But does this interfere with any sort of Fourth Amendment right the child may have? And what does it do to the relationship? Do these kids have any rights? Joining me now, the man behind the proposal, Senator Eric Adams from New York, and Jeffrey Nadel, president of the National Youth Rights Association, who is 17, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, listen, Jeffrey, I'm on the side with the senator here tonight, but I knew I had to prepare myself because I know you're very bright. You're going to the University of Pennsylvania, and you're a very good debater. So, Senator, let me start with you first of all. What inspired you to do this, to go and place this on YouTube and tell parents, snoop on your kids, find out what they're up to?
Well, after 22 years of law enforcement and countless number of parents, professional parents, and parents from good households involved with incidents where their child, unbeknownst to them, was either participating in carrying drugs, selling drugs, or had firearms in their homes. Innocent siblings of these young people also were victimized by having guns. Cases where children were playing with guns they found in the home and actually lost their lives. A young lady came to me in my district. She's a professional. She was a CPA by trade. Her husband was a trial attorney. Little did she know, for several years, her son was selling drugs in her house. And when the police arrested him and she went in the room and looked inside the room, she found drug paraphernalia, other items, and there was a firearm as well inside the household. So it's obvious to me that there's an obligation that parents must have to ensure the safety of everyone that's inside the house. And that's what this is born out of. It's not born out of spying on a child. When I go through my son's room, he participates with me, and he understands when he enters the house, everything that comes in my house is up to being searched and looked at. There's no Fourth or First Amendment rights
and you do it with them. And I like that, Senator. And Jeffrey, let me go to you now as a young person, 17 years old. You'll be off to college next year. Here's from my perspective as a parent, Jeffrey, is anything I do, I need to know what my child's up to, because I'm not with my child, 14, 16 hours a day. And really, all we want as parents is for our child and our homes to be safe places. Is that so wrong?
Sure. I mean, the senator's proposal is undoubtedly well-intentioned, but there are some fatal flaws of it that we need to look at. The senator advocates that parents employ these police-style searches of their children's room. And again, while that is well-intentioned, it's going to do nothing other than push young people away from the families, push them away from the family units, and even closer to the vices that the senator's plan purports to prevent. What we need instead is open, equal discussion with foundations of mutual respect and mutual trust. When parents have that discussion with their children, when they discuss issues and their concerns with their children, then those children will take responsibility for their own actions. Otherwise,
do they have to be mutually exclusive, though, Jeffrey? Because I think you can have the discussion and you can let your child know, hey, listen, I'm going to keep an eye on everything that's in this house. I'm going to make sure that you're not doing something you shouldn't do, but we're also going to talk about it. I don't think it's one or the other. Do you, Jeffrey?
Well, the problem that we encounter then is that if children know to expect these searches and they know that their belongings are going to be rummaged through, what's going to happen is their activities, their illicit activities, if there are any, are going to be driven even further into secrecy. The bonds of trust are going to be further broken, and these activities are going to be conducted in more dangerous environments. That trust needs to be preserved so that the relationship between parents and children can stand, and so that problems can be resolved together. Just all that we need to do is look at the statistics. All right,
yeah, Jeffrey, what we're going to do right here now is I'm going to give the senator some time to respond. We got to do it after a quick break here. But I told you, Senator, this kid is smart. We're going to talk more about this. Take your phone calls.
run your hands over the pillows and see if you feel anything that's unusual. Like a pillow like this with the button is a perfect invitation to hide something. And I felt something bumpy. I will reach in, see what it is. This one could be hidden inside a pillow. A child would take this gun, and because the trigger pull is so hard, they normally take the gun and they point it in their direction to pull down on it.
And what we're talking about here is searching your child's room, because your child has no legal rights to privacy there. And then the issue becomes what happens to the trust between parent and child. But I'm with the senator on this, and he's with us tonight. Safety first. Whatever you have to do to know what's going on in your child's life, but continue the lines of communication, obviously. What do you think at home? Let's go to the phone lines tonight. Michelle's in North Carolina. Michelle, your thoughts about searching your teen's room?
Well, I got to tell you, Vinny, my daughter now is in her 20s, and about 10 years ago when she was in middle school and high school, I would go through her backpack, not for the reasons of, let's say, guns way back then, but more for the reasons to see, had she done her homework? Were things signed? If I gave her money for a field trip, did she put the check in? And quite often when I would just say, I didn't let her know, but I would say, by the way, Cal, did you put the check in to the teacher? Just to remind her. So it was different times, and I guess maybe these days...
Yeah. Things are a lot more serious than a field trip these days, Michelle. John's in North Carolina also tonight. John, your thoughts?
Yes, well, I think as far as the child goes, they're under 18, they're not considered an adult. If they're living in my house, under my rules, I have the right to make sure my child is being safe and make sure that, you know, there is no something going on, because with the peer groups now today, some of the teens have a hard time talking to their parents about drugs, alcohol, or whatever. And in some schools, they're finding guns on 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds.
Hey, let me tell you, we did a story the other night. A 5-year-old brought a gun to school. Thanks so much for the call. Jeffrey, do you understand that at some point it's really in the best interest of the child to have a parent that cares enough to snoop?
I certainly see where you're coming from, and the question I would pose to you and to parents across the country is, do you want your children to come to you to discuss with you when they have issues like this, or do you want them to conduct them in secret? The only way to maintain that dialogue is to handle this in an open fashion, not to conduct these searches, which will just drive them further away. The facts are very clear. 2009 was the safest year in this country in terms of crime since 1968. Drug use among high schoolers, among adolescents, has declined by over 30% over the last 40 years. We are moving in the right direction. Let's not change that. Let's not turn to the wrong direction by limiting our young people and,
Jeffrey,
and breaking down the whole family.
Senator a couple seconds to respond here before we run out of time. Go ahead, Senator.
And I applaud Jeff Reason. He's supposed to do that because he's a young man. He should push back on trend, but I'm an adult. I have an obligation and responsibility not to look at stats to try to beautify or to give a dream environment. Guns are killing our inner cities. Some parents won't have to do this, fine. But those that do, there's a YouTube video that will help them.
Absolutely.
I cannot sit back and continue to watch this.
You can't just let it happen. Senator Eric Adams, thank you so much. Jeffrey Nadel, good luck at Penn next year.
Thank you.
I know you're going to knock him dead. All right.